Welcome everybody. It's March 10th. Obviously Val and Gail are enthused and energized, right? That's for sure. So you guys can switch the decaf anytime now, right? For
I'm
sure.
done with my coffee for the
When you're
day,
not-
so just warning you.
Hey, hey,
Oh,
welcome
for sure.
everybody. And of course it is great, with daylight savings time, it's kind of exciting to be eating dinner and looking out over light, like over scenery now. So I guess at least we're all zoned in on the new time zone. Hey, just a couple quick comments before we kick off. About once a month, Katie and I get an email from someone in the foundation saying that they're not getting the newsletter or they're not getting our emails. And just a heads up, there is limits. There are limits, right, to your emails, to your email storage. So Microsoft, gives you 100 gigabytes of free. Google gives you 15 gigabytes of free, and Yahoo gives you 20 gigabytes free. And it's amazing, all that sounds like incredible space, but it fills up if you're not deleting your inbox, wiping your stuff into trash, and cleaning up your inbox. So just a heads up here is that I can tell based upon the emails that go out, I can see if an email was sent to an inbox and was received by that inbox.
Hmm.
So it's an easy check if someone's not getting an email for me to verify that, hey, it's actually going out and you're on the list, but somehow in your system, right, it's getting kicked out. So just a heads up, hygiene regarding your email inbox is something to think about. Any questions or comments on that?
I clean mine out every day.
Good
Me
for you.
too. Me too.
Good, good for you. In my
Especially in
that's
Gmail, I get so much junk. It's
Yeah,
pathetic.
exactly.
It's pathetic email too. Ugh, disgusting.
I got my unreads down to 40,000.
Yeah.
I'm making progress.
Okay. Got some work to do, and you are our secretary, that's for sure. Okay, so we've got a lot to cover here today, and I'll go through our to-dos from OSU in terms of the gardening, and we'll talk a little bit about what Don Tapio said in his books about this time of year. Very excited to have Dan Friesz join us, and this is a recommendation from Mike Carvia maybe a couple years ago, actually, that we get Dan on to talk about forest resilience here in Western Washington and the initiatives he has here specifically for our areas. And I know, Erin, you've got some stuff you want to share. So we've got a lot of stuff to cover today. Let's march in. Um, Reminder for everybody to uh, read the e-news closely because there's a lot that's going on here in March. So we've got our board meeting today at 1 p.m. Reminder, everyone is welcome. It's the same URL you use to get into this meeting here. So our Zoom begins at 1 o'clock. Everyone's welcome. Coastal Grace Harbor meets on Thursday. Rose Care, both in Ocean Shores and at Polson in Hoquiam, this Saturday and the following Saturday. Study group next Monday. Work parties begin. Work parties begin at the Elma Garden next week, every Thursday morning. And Greater Grace Harbor meets on the 21st. Any other announcements or dates in March that anyone wants to make note of? I
Yeah,
tried to
I have
Go
one,
ahead, Ray.
Kelly. Rachel Gada is working on doing a seed starting workshop on March 28th. We're just getting the lesson plan and the flyer prepared and hopefully get that done today and off to Erin and Wendy for approval. And that'll be held at the new Cranberry Greenhouse.
Very good. And Rachel, you're right here with us. Do you want to share anything? Looking for your mute button, right?
There we go. Yeah, Rita and I talked about it, I think, after our last time we were out there working, and we just thought we should jump on it and start using the new greenhouse. It's such a great facility. And anyway,
So
we
it'll be
kind of,
March 28th, right?
yeah, we put it out far enough for it to have time to get ready. So
By the way,
that's all.
if you get a chance, Rachel, you ought to post a picture to the chat of your cat and your two dogs all sitting on the new couch, right? So
Yeah,
it's a marvel of animal husbandry that they all get along. And that
yeah.
so we're not sure where you have a chance to sit.
I'm in the love seat. So they're all on the couch. Yeah.
So again, this is a snapshot from the e-news. We'll add the 28th to all this once the dates get all set here, but there's a lot to read here. So the e-news is incredibly important. If anyone's not receiving it, reach out and let's make sure that that there's not an email issue of some sort. Now, looking beyond March, right? Terry had an article in the e-news regarding the plant sale on May 9th and the Home and Garden Show on the 16th and 17th. And Terry, do you want to add to that? Do you want to share anything specific to the show that we want to be paying attention to now?
Just that we really need to have people save those dates so they can volunteer, because we need lots and lots of volunteers for all of our events that are coming up, including the garden tour in Ocean Shores, which is in July, as usual. And I think we're going to have some really terrific gardens on the garden tour.
So again, these are dates and huge involvement, huge need, right, for all hands to engage on these dates here. So please mark the calendars and plan to participate in Elma, I guess in Ocean Shores and in Markham, right, on the May 9th plant sale, and then
Right.
Elma the 16th and 17th, and then Ocean Shores on the 18th of July.
Also, this is a great time to divide plants, which are needed for the plant sale that's part of the garden tour. And Cindy Crosby and Janice Williams are organizing that plant sale. And I know they're looking forward to hundreds of plants to sell. So anyway, great time to pot up plants right now, unless you have snow and freezing rain like Gail said she had yesterday.
So a reminder to everyone that that people do value what we do as master gardeners, and they view the plant materials that we offer as master gardeners at these plant sales as special, and so they're eager to purchase from us because they know we're pushing out a quality product here. And there's great opportunity, right, this year, to take starts, to make divisions. This is the time of year to actually engage in all that. So jumping ahead, reminder that we meet here today as master gardeners, all certified by WSU Extension and committed to sharing horticultural and gardening news and expertise with our communities. The foundation, whose board will meet at 1 o'clock today, is a nonprofit corporation recognized by the IRS in the state of Washington, specifically organized and specifically chartered to support the program. So, and the officers of the foundation include Mike, as the president, and others here on the as you see on the slide here. And quick update, by the way, we're underway with the revision of our articles of incorporation and our bylaws and our policies and procedures. So we're scrubbing those up for 2026, kind of a spring cleaning, if you will, of our governance documents. And Sharon Coolish Bales and Erin have more information regarding that activity. Okay, we have, because of the size of our two counties foundation, we have 3 regional directors that our current bylaws, note are elected. And so Rita, Sally, and Wendy are leading those communities of master gardeners so that we have some regionality defined here. And of course, our state directors, Jennifer, and Wendy and Erin lead us as our coordinators today. Okay. So reminder to everyone, just as we've been talking about, this is an opportunity for all of us to engage. We are a service organization. And so this is a great opportunity for us to be thinking about how we want to participate to the fullest extent in this year. Okay. Don Tapio, in March of 2009, talked about in his book, More Than a Green Thumb, right? He talked about what it was to have, to get your soil ready for planting. And this is a quick, the article actually was talking about advantages and disadvantages of organic fertilizers. And it was interesting notes that he makes on this. And it's interesting in reading the text, of this March 9th entry, you realize how easily we become confused or misinformed regarding benefits and detriments of organic versus non-organic fertilizers and the soil amendments. So yeah, on the positive side, organic fertilizers and organic amendments certainly can improve water and nutrient holding capacity. It certainly creates a habitat for beneficial soil organization. They do take longer to break down, right? An organic amendment, and it's a slower release of the nutrients that are caught up in those fertilizers. However, Don makes a note. You got to make sure you're applying organic fertilizers before the plants need them, before the plants need the nutrients that are being provided. The organic fertilizer needs to break down in order for the plants to be able to absorb the vitamins, nutrients that are there. Organic fertilizers are usually lower in content per value, and that makes a lot of sense, right? Non-organics are able to chemically build up specific concentrations of nutrient value. Organic nutrient content, as the next bullet says, can be highly variable. So you've got to be sure to supplement make sure correct ratios. So, and there's very key comment here at the bottom here is to make sure that whatever organic materials you're using are well composted, and make sure that it's not introducing problems to the garden here. Now the net solution of all this, right, is that there actually is there's some interesting tools that are available that weren't available back when Don wrote the article. There's a fertilizer and cover crop calculator that OSU offers. And it's right there at that. If you do a Google search on organic fertilizer and cover crop calculators, OSU will pop up there. And it gives you an opportunity to think about nutrient value of and the particular trade-offs for organics. And of course, at the end of the day, if you're applying organics and you're unsure of the nutrient content and the nutrient concentration, there's no substitute for getting a soil test. And both OSU and WSU have labs that they'll talk about are certified for soil test. And we, of course, been talking also about the availability of the Thurston Conservation District and their very inexpensive, simple soil test that is available for everybody. So any comments regarding Don's thoughts on organic, inorganic fertilizers? Val? Yep, you're on mute. Yep.
See, I'm trying to be quiet.
We appreciate everybody being on mute. Yeah, but it does create that trade-off.
I went to SoilCon in February for the first time in a long time, and I got an email from soil.health@wsu.edu, and they're putting out a monthly newsletter for Washington Soil Health Initiative. And as many of you know, soil health is one of my favorite topics. So what Don says here is just spectacular when we weren't covering soil microorganisms that much when he wrote this. So yeah, it's good stuff.
You must be a life of the party at a cocktail party, right? Talking about soil health, right?
I don't drink anymore, so I don't go to those.
So could you?
Gotcha.
And so, Erin, you put the URL right into the chat. So check on that. That's for sure.
Thanks, Erin.
And sign up. It's a newsletter that comes out, Val?
Yes, I just got it this morning.
And, underscoring the importance of this, we all know that the soils, I mean, except where Erin lives, she has loam, right? There's no place else in our foundation, right? We can talk about loam, loamy soils. So it's exciting just to say the word. knowing that soil amendment and soil health is such an important part. And this is critically important, obviously, when we're talking to folks that are plant clinics, right? Helping them understand that they're going to have to work with their soil if they want to have successful gardens and landscapes. Any other comments regarding organic, inorganic fertilizers, best practices? Okay. So a couple things, announcements and so forth. March to-dos from OSU. OSU is saying, get out in front of your vegetable garden. I'm certainly not sure we'd want to be doing it outside per se, unless you're in a greenhouse or some sort of covered. But they're talking about cool system crops. If you got your soils consistently above 40 degrees, and this is fun too, at WSU, weather.wsu.edu, you'll find soil temperatures based upon a very helpful map. When I prepare these presentations, by the way, I typically begin by going back to past years and looking at what I wrote and what we shared in past years. In 2024, at our March meeting, this was what the average soil temps were. Okay, and just a quick heads up, right? So for whatever reason, I couldn't find the 2025 numbers, but look at what 2026 is. Yes, we've had a warm spring. Look how much warmer the soil temps are today than they were just 2 years ago. Now, obviously, there's going to be variability, week to week, from year to year. But we probably are off to an early start. Although, today's 37 degrees, here in Ocean Park, would not certainly be an indicator of all that. So, soil temps and soil thermometer, very important to be thinking about things. March to-dos, continuing on, time to compost, talking about fertilizing, if needed, your established evergreens and rhodies. Spring flowering shrubs, pruning after the blossom fades. Reminder not to compost, any materials if you got some nasty herbicides that or weed and feed products have been using it. Planting and propagation, just as Terry was saying earlier, let's divide plants that can easily be split up, right? And easily set upon. It's a great opportunity. Great opportunity also to think about grafting. And I put there's a reference here to propagation of plants by grafting and budding that the PNW Northwest pushes out. And this is it's a fun skill, to think about and to try and experiment with. And so, take some of these favorite plants that you've got and read up on how this thing plays out and try it. Great time to be thinking about in the gardens and in the landscapes, what sort of plants can support insect life. And there's another PNW publication talking about encouraging beneficial insects. And they talk about some great, perennials as well as perennials that actually do have a lot of functional value. If you're thinking about yarrow and dill and sunflower, that can be added to your landscape. And this is the time to be thinking about these things. And of course, berry crops, right? All kinds of berries that grow so well here in the area. So it's time to start getting active and getting out there in the garden, making things happen. Pest monitoring, a key reminder, and this is a key reminder to everybody we talk to in our plant clinics. If you see a problem, make sure you identify what the problem is before you start grabbing glyphosate or some other insecticide or fungicide and just start spraying wildly. So there's an opportunity, right, there's an opportunity to be smart about how we're treating our pest. New growth from slugs, they're out there. And so, the reminder here from OSU is to think IPM, integrated pest management, in terms of how we're supporting the plants that we've got going on. Pruning for air circulation. This is certainly a big problem where we have here in terms of it. There's so much dampness here at the coast that air circulation, I'm finding, is a huge, either detriment or benefit in terms of plant health. And just as the Rose workshops are going to be talking about this coming week, there's an opportunity for rose black spot control. And and I'm sure that be some of the topics that'll be covered during the rose program. Other comments, other notes regarding March to-dos? What best practices do we all have here that we think we want to share for March? Anyone? I'm sure we're out there doing gardening, right?
I have to comment again on chemical fertilizers. The upside is you get high concentrations of nitrogen and phosphorus and potassium. The downside is that it forces the microorganisms to leave that area, and it also, like 60 or 70% of it leaches into our water supply. So that's a nix for me totally.
Val, and it just that underscores, I mean, both Bev and I come from the Midwest, right? And we've seen the use of nitrogen and the use of heavy fertilizers on those farm soils has really rendered fishing in the Mississippi River just to be it's inedible. I mean, there's catfish, usually thought of as just a favorite, is just they're inedible and dangerous to be consumed at this point. Terry, you have your hand up.
Yes, I've noticed a lot of baby slugs in the garden already. And so I've been trying what I heard about, and I think it's accepted now by WSU. I've been taking all my coffee grounds and putting them around plants that I can see that they're already starting to nibble on. So I'm hoping that'll work, because I drink a lot of coffee, and it's my used coffee grounds are a lot cheaper than buying cheap beer, because there's no cheap beer anymore.
So Val, hopefully you're drinking coffee, if not alcohol. So that gives you an opportunity to generate some coffee grounds.
You're forcing me to talk. Since I got sober 38 years ago, I drink a whole lot of coffee, trust me. So, yes.
So Terry, there must be something about the acidity, I guess, of coffee grounds that the slugs don't like.
That's my understanding. And also, I don't think they like the texture.
Again, OSU in their extension website has a huge article on that. And Debbie Knight did a presentation at GGH, and it's a great use. I mean, it takes care of beetles around rhododendrons, and the slug thing is just, that's as organic as you can get. So anyway, and coffee grounds look brown, but they have nitrogen content. So
how much are you applying, Terry?
I just kind of try and rim it with a little bit. I take my coffee filter and kind of spread it around whatever plant it is that I'm trying to protect. And then I lay the paper down. I tear the coffee ground paper and also put it down. But the other thing I've been noticing is a lot of snails, those invasive, are they Japanese snails? Lots of baby ones, and they kind of find little crooks and crannies, like around nursery pots, and I use some old garbage cans and stuff like that. So if I look around the edges where they can kind of crawl in and they have some protection, I can find lots of brand new snails.
I have a question about snails. I've been finding a lot of snails too, and I didn't used to have snails at all, but to me they're just the slug with a shell on it. But I was reading the other day that somebody wrote, "Don't kill the native snails." And I said back, "Well, how do you tell a native snail from a non-native snail?" And they said, "The ones with the really hard shells are the non-native ones. The ones with the thin shells that you can practically see through, those are the native ones." I thought those were just the baby ones.
The native ones are actually green and they're flat. They're much smaller than the invasive ones get as they grow. You know, do you know what I mean by flat?
I don't remember ever seeing a flat snail, so I'm just going by the ones I have in my garden, and they all look alike to me. But some of them do have a really thin shell, but usually those are the little tiny ones, and I figured their shells just haven't gotten hard yet. But
I'll try and find you a native snail and send it to you, Robin. I'll send you a photo.
yeah, I was gonna say, just send me the photo. You can keep the snail, but I'd like to know that because I don't think I've ever seen a flat snail or one that I thought was green.
Well, I call them flat. I mean, they're not totally flat, but the other ones, you know, they're kind of conical, and these are not.
So just to be sure, right, you know, this has been studied a lot, right? You know, and so I've put a link from OSU about slug and snail identification in the chat. And so it does behoove us. This is a great question, right, to be dealing with respect to the folks that we engage in our plant clinics, right? You know, so how do I know about the native slugs, you know, which eat only dead material and don't go after you know, your live material and the snails here. So it's a great opportunity for us to study up.
Yeah.
I wanted to add too with the coffee grounds, you kind of have to be careful because I put coffee grounds around like my lettuce one year and there was enough nitrogen in there that it burned the lettuce and it made it inedible. So don't be too generous with your coffee grounds, I guess is what I'm saying.
Has anybody had luck with the copper tape? Because I used copper tape around my dahlias last year and I didn't have any slugs in my dahlias. So I don't know if that's what worked or not, but
I've used copper tape. It works for a year or two.
oh yeah.
Once it gets the patina on it, it doesn't work anymore. And it's so expensive that we just decided it wasn't worth it.
Right. Yeah. I threw mine away already this year because it needs to be replaced.
Isn't it also expensive?
It's very expensive. I'm sure it's even a lot more expensive now than it was when we did it before.
Up on slugs and snails. Hey, just a quick shout out, by the way, to everybody who helped out just last week in taking over the greenhouse. Now, we're talking about a large greenhouse, almost 1,600 square feet at the WSU Cranberry Research Center in Long Beach. And the foundation there, right, is very interested in seeing the greenhouse made active again. And last Thursday, right, the work party you see assembled here, including Rhonda, who was taking the pictures, you know, had a very productive work session in terms of potting up. It's actually the total. Rhonda, what is the total? It's well over 250 plants total.
I didn't add up what Marilyn sent me. I didn't add the totals up. Marilyn went through, I think it was yesterday, and did a total count on it. 210 is what we started with, but if you add all of the seed starts at almost 50 pots per seeds, we have in the neighborhood of 350 plants.
Yeah. And so
we'll see how this goes.
Just a start here. So anyway,
oh my gosh, it was really, it was a lot of fun. Sorry, Kelly. I just wanted to say, take some time and go down to see this greenhouse. It blew my mind when I got down there that our whole group is going to have access to this, using it. Surreal how beautiful it is, well taken care of, and how much space and room inside. I'm excited for the Long Beach Peninsula. I'm jealous, actually.
And a shout out to three
a lot of good work done by a lot of people.
And 3 Montesanos, mind you, that came after this, right? This just great that we had the tribe from Montesano showed up to help out.
Hey, I just want to make a real quick comment when you were talking about things happening in the garden. I've had an aphid infestation, of all things, outside. I couldn't figure out why my heliobore was looking so bad. And I went out the other day and started really looking at it. It was so covered in aphids, and it's sitting out in the open on my front porch, and it's been out all year. It was planted last year. So cleaned all those off and then found neighboring plants that they had extended to. So I'm kind of fighting an aphid infestation on flowers on my porch. And this just seems like the most bizarre time to have them.
It really does seem early, Rhonda, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Keep us apprised of what's going on and what's happening there.
A lot of hand picking. Ooh, Jude would be proud of me.
Erin, do you want to go ahead and talk? I also see that Dan is with us now. So, I mean, I don't want to slow up momentum here. Do you want to pick up, Erin?
I can. Did you say Dan? Oh, not. I thought you meant Dan Tudeberg.
No.
I'm like, what? So yeah. Well, I wanted to give a really quick program update, and then I have like kind of a micro training that I want to do. I'm hoping to make kind of a regular occurrence. It's 10 to 15 minutes, just to kind of master gardener skills to revisit. But first things first, I have accepted the position of WSU Extension Master Gardener Program Coordinator and Small Farms Coordinator for Grays Harbor Pacific County. And it is expected the start date will be March 30th. So that a lot of that depends on how all the paperwork goes through WSU. It could be sooner. So, and I told Dan, I said, as soon as it's ready, you know, I'm already doing the work. So there's no reason for me not to start as soon as WSU's ready. So because this is a WSU staff position that has program oversight, that does mean that I have to retire as a master gardener, unfortunately, but between WSU policy and apparently state law, I cannot volunteer in a program that I have oversight on. So I'll be stepping down as volunteer, but I'm still here and really looking forward to getting started as with the actual WSU resources and support.
Huzzah, huzzah indeed. That's great. We're very excited. Although it's just losing you as a volunteer though is just as a bummer as well.
Well, so far this year, 90% of my hours have been program coordinator anyway. So let's see what else. Wendy is going to continue to support all of us. Her title's changing a little bit to a program assistant, and that's just consistent with the way WSU structures things. She's still going to be managing GivePulse and helping out with a lot of program coordination. So once we have a better idea of WSU's expectations of who does what and that types of stuff, we'll let everybody know, you know, where our responsibilities are going to be for specific activities and things. But when in doubt, you can email me, and then if we need to, Wendy and I can work it out, who's going to respond. And I'll put my email in the chat, just for people who don't have it. Let's see. So what else? We just wrapped up training. We have 16 trainees that just graduated to interns. We have a few more coming probably in June. There's a few people who took an extension on training. So this was our first year using Green School, and so far the response has been really positive. The trainees were able to do the coursework on their own time at their own pace, relatively. And then we did monthly training sessions in conjunction with that, so that helped them get hands-on skills and reinforce the coursework that they did. And let's see. So yeah, so we've already kind of making some minor modifications to our ideas for the in-person training for next year, but it's going to largely be the same. So but I really want to thank the training team, the mentors, and all the volunteers who helped with training. It is a huge effort, and it's going to be wonderful that we have close to 20 new volunteers who are ready to step up. So, and I already have leads on a couple for next year. So they're already coming in, which is great. Let's see, volunteers have already logged over 900 hours this year. Which is huge. So thank you to everyone who's been putting their hours in and keeping them up to date. And I want to remind everyone who hasn't put in their hours to keep putting them in regularly. It's easy to get behind and get backed up and forget what your hours were. And those hours really help us tell our story as a program and demonstrate the impact of the work that we do. A couple of outreach opportunities that are coming up. Steam Donkey Brewing Suds and Science Night in Aberdeen. They're looking for presenters to talk about gardening from time to time. And I don't have in my notes what, I think it's usually in the evening. And then also the Aberdeen chapter of the PEO is looking for a speaker on March 23rd at 1 p.m. just to kind of talk about general gardening. So if anybody's interested in doing that outreach, get in touch with me and we can get you in touch with them and figure out what you want to talk about. And it's a good opportunity for interns to start getting their outreach hours. Just remember that you do need a mentor or at least a certified master gardener with you when you do that outreach. Yeah. Okay, so that's my notes for program update. Haley, do you want me to go right into the
Yeah, you want to share? Want to share? Okay, it's over to you.
Okay. Oops, not share. Let's see this one. Okay. So today I thought I would just talk for just a few minutes about the differences between a class, a demonstration, and a workshop. And to some of you, this might seem really obvious, and some people may not have really put a lot of thought into it. It just didn't occur to them that there maybe needs to be a difference. There. Okay, anyway. WSU extension programs and policies are consistent with federal and state laws federal and state laws and regulations on non-discrimination. Extension is for everyone, so thank you all for being here today. Have you ever taken some outreach or attended outreach that was advertised as a workshop, but turned out to be maybe a demonstration or a class? And think for a second how that affects your perceived value of the event. When we blur the terms class or workshop or demonstration, it unintentionally creates frustration for the attendees. So we're going to clarify what each format actually means and why it matters. So is it a class? In a class, the focus is the transfer of information. You're learning about a topic. The audience's role is as a listener, and the structure is an organized presentation, usually sometimes PowerPoint, lecture-based with a Q&A at the end or during, either one. And some examples could be like the basics of soil science or native plants for coastal gardens or an introduction to integrated pest management. But the attendee's expectation is that I will learn something new. For a demonstration, the focus is showing a process to the attendees rather than just talking about it. And the audience's role is an observer. So the presenter is performing a task while explaining the process, or possibly doing it while another person is explaining the process, depending on what the demonstration is. And some examples could be a grafting demonstration, how to build a compost pile, or maybe how to transplant a houseplant. And so the expectation of the attendee is they were going to watch how it's done and get an understanding of how to do it. For a workshop, the focus is more on skill building. The audience's role is an active participant. So they're participating, they're doing the same skill that you're teaching. It's hands-on guided practice. And that could be a pruning lab or a seed starting session, like the one they just talked about doing it down at the greenhouse, tool sharpening. If the attendees are not actively practicing and participating, then it's not considered a workshop. And the attendee's expectation is I will do something and leave with either a skill or a product. So why the distinction matters. One of the big reasons is the public's expectations. If they, like I mentioned at the very beginning, if they are coming expecting a workshop and it's a class, they could feel misled. Their satisfaction with the overall outreach drops. It could also mean they are unprepared for conditions. If we're working outside in the weather or getting dirty and they're not dressed for that, that can affect their satisfaction with the project as well. And it could mean that the attendee leaves disappointed. Additionally, the preparation and resources are different for these different types of outreach. Different space setups, different supplies, and different staffing needs to manage the outreach. So workshops require more materials per participant, so they need all the materials to build or make whatever it is that is being taught. There is usually a smaller teacher to student ratio so that you can work hands-on with attendees. The instructions are very clear and they usually take longer because you're teaching and doing at the same time. Demonstrations require visibility, so they have to be able to see what you're demonstrating. They have to be able to clearly understand the narrative that you're explaining, and it's a more controlled environment. Whereas a class requires organized slides, strong pacing to keep them engaged while also managing in the time allotted. And then there's usually a more structured question and answer session. And then finally, the reporting and evaluation. So being able to measure the impact that outreach has in the community. It also raises our credibility as a program when attendees are getting the expected outcome. It helps with our resource planning. It helps with reporting to WSU. So every year I have to do reporting to WSU, and they actually do break it down. How many workshops did you do? How many classes did you do? How many demonstrations did you do? So that distinction matters to WSU as well in their reporting as they report up to stakeholders. And then also funding support. So when we can demonstrate all these different ways that we provide outreach, like I said, it improves our credibility, and then in turn, it can also make certain organizations more willing to support us or provide funding for us. So when you promote an event, can you clearly state the format? So I want to ask yourself, what is the format? And does that description clearly match what the expected experience of the attendees would be? So our credibility depends on delivering what we say we're going to deliver. And so a clear format is provides a clear expectation, which then in turn has leads to a satisfied attendee and hopefully growth of attendees at our events by word of mouth. So that was just my quick presentation. Does anybody have any questions? I guess not.
I liked the slides. Is there a possibility that you could make those the 3 slides that do the breakdown showing the class, the audience role, and the structure?
Yeah, I can send the slide deck out.
That would be great. I'd love to see that slide deck.
What would you
Thanks,
classify?
Erin.
What would you classify a presentation at Steam Donkey, for example?
That would be a class.
Class? Okay.
Yeah. Because you're typically, they have a TV, you put up a slide presentation and you talk through. So it's still class, even though it's in a
An
pub.
informal setting.
Yeah, it's a
Okay.
less formal setting, but it's still
Okay.
a class. Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. So one thing I didn't mention earlier is that in April, instead of doing a short one like this, I'm going to do a longer kind of a discussion about the changes that are coming or may or may not be coming as I transition into a staff position, but also some other organizational changes within WSU. So that's going to be a bit longer well, not fully a presentation, more of a conversation. So if you have any questions about things that are coming up, that would be a good opportunity to ask.
So going back to class versus workshop, I mean, it sounds like the seed starting workshop being planned for the end of this month is clearly a workshop, since there'll be engagement with the audience, right? In terms of learning a skill.
Yeah.
Yeah. Other
So I have a
comments?
question. I have
Go
a
ahead.
question. This is, I'm sorry.
Sure, Elizabeth.
I have a question. This is Elizabeth. Erin,
Please
can you hear me?
go ahead. Yeah, we can hear you. Go
Okay.
ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're not talking about youth outreach.
Well, yeah, so this is primary, just kind of the other educational delivery category as a form, and I guess I should have clarified that. Youth, I mean, those can apply to youth outreach or senior outreach as well. Youth outreach is typically going to be more workshop style, I would assume, because kids aren't going to sit still long enough for you to talk to them for 20 minutes. But yeah, I would think, and I've seen most of the work with the senior outreach too is more workshop style.
Okay. I can't remember, do we track it, the youth outreach? It does not fall into those categories, so it's just youth outreach.
No,
does it break it down at the end of the year?
I think it does.
Okay.
But I don't know that they've been reported that way, so we just kind of dumped them into workshops, knowing that that's typically the way that we engage with kids. Is
Okay.
hands-on.
That can be clarified later. I'm just curious.
And so additional questions and comments, reach out to Erin on this. This is very helpful, Erin, and very much look forward to these sessions and as well as additional sessions, right, as you get into this, as you get into the role. So very exciting. Hey, so coming back here, let me do a quick introduction to Dan, who's patiently with us, is patiently held on here. And Dan, we really appreciate you coming on, because there's a lot of stuff regarding, the fact that, 70% of Pacific County, by the way, is forest. It's timberland. And so there's no question that folks that we engage in our workshops down here in Pacific County are clearly asking about, who owns the forest, who manages the forest, what's the best way of managing the forest, right? What are forest conditions like, how can they help or hurt? So all kinds of questions we're eager to learn from you in terms of how to better respond to these inquiries. And I was thrilled to see this picture that you shared here of a restoration effort that DNR is underway near Raymond. And so I'm going to stop my share, Dan, and turn it over to you, and let you go to town.
All right. I have 3 screens going, so let's get this all figured out. Everybody hear me okay? Thumbs up?
Yeah,
right,
we can hear you. Yeah.
I'm usually a Teamser, so let me find the share button here.
It should be down in your Zoom toolbar, the very bottom, right in the middle there.
Yes. This is going to be the hardest part of the day for me. Let's do this. Let's start that. And let's see that screen. This screen right here. Oop, that's not the one I want. Stop share. Share. I need you on screen too. There it is. I bet you got it.
Yep, coming up.
All right. You see a beautiful picture of the Columbia River Gorge?
We do indeed.
All right, we're in business. Thanks for the invitation. And so I'm trying to look at this camera as much as I can, and I'll be kind of drifting back and forth looking at screens and notes. But again, thanks. I love the conversations about slugs and hellebore. Living in Astoria, my wife and I's biggest issue are deer, and so we basically have a fortress around our house to protect everything inside. We stopped growing fruits and vegetables because the rats ate everything. And so we kind of battle slugs and hellebore. We have a beautiful patch at our mailbox, and I have to keep my eye on it constantly because the aphids will wipe it out 2 or 3 times a year. So I always walk by them and take a look at them. And Dawn soap actually works pretty well. It kind of gets them off of there. So anyway, again, thanks for the invitation. I am Dan Friesz. I work at the Department of Natural Resources in a program called Forest Resiliency, or if you dial it down a little bit more, is we work with foresters on a team that provides service forestry to landowners. And so, and I think, do I have 45 minutes? Is that
Yeah,
about right?
please. Yeah, keep running. This is great stuff.
Let's move to the next screen. There we go. So the area that I manage is in southwestern Washington, and I like to tell folks it's basically at Bonneville Dam, and we go downriver all the way to Long Beach, and then we go up to the mouth of the Chehalis there at Aberdeen, Hoquiam, and then we kind of follow it back in on the Cowlitz River up to the Crest, Packwood, Randall area, and then back on down. And so there's 7 counties in there. Lots of beautiful country, lots of different ecosystems starting at the coast, and you go up to Willapa Hills, and then you go through the foothills of the Cascades. So there's a lot of different ecosystems and habitat types that the foresters that we work with got to know a little bit about each and everything in those different kind of ecosystems. So it's quite unique. The vegetation composition on Long Beach Peninsula on the coast is far different than the foothills of the Cascades. Far different. Each in its own very beautiful. This is a great slide. I think Kelly just touched on this. Is the green is all the small forested landowner parcels in the state of Washington. And so our program dives in and reaches and helps these folks. And roughly 19 million acres of the state of Washington is forest land. And about 2.5 million of that, or about 15%, is owned by small forest landowners. And so that DNR really makes an emphasis to reach out to that 15% of the public that need help. So we're not talking about the warehousers. We don't assist the warehousers. We don't assist the big timber industries. So they have their own programs and finances to help them move along. And about 70% of the people in this green own about 20 acres or less. And so that makes it even more important to kind of reach out to folks, kind of get them on pace of what their goals and objectives are. And then we can kind of combine these 20-acre parcels together to create a more contiguous forest management across the landscape. And our biggest fear in the program I work with is people selling these off and then carving them up into small parcels, and we're removing forest land either for homes or for businesses. So we really advocate for landowners to keep their land in working lands, and rather than dividing them up and selling up. But economic constraints and what we're going through currently and in the past, it's tough for some landowners, and they have to make financial decisions for their family and retirement, and so that's all understood. The next slide is all these red dots are folks that we've worked with or executed projects on, and you can kind of see how the green on the right, it blends in with where the dots are. And you can see over here, let me see, I got a laser pointer I was playing with today. Let's get the laser pointer. You can see Pacific County and Grays Harbor County where our business is just not as robust as it is in Clark County and up in Lewis County along the I-5 corridor. And so we're really continuing to work with landowners in Pacific County to get some more interaction, site visits, cost share projects, technical assistance. But a lot of it's large industrial private landowners that own the forest land in Pacific County. And so we slowly are starting to engage more people in Pacific County. Let's go to the next slide. And here's a good slide of kind of just what I touched on of our efforts in that Pacific Cascade region I talked about. Lewis County by far is where we do most of our business, and then Clark, and then Cowlitz County. You think of Skamania County, predominantly the whole county is Forest Service, and there's just not much private land there to work with. Wahkiakum County is kind of the same way. And then Grays Harbor County, we just don't have much of the county in the region. So I can't really equally compare that, but Pacific County is one that I'm hoping to get some more interactions with. I think I see Mike online, and he's one landowner that we've helped there out of Oysterville with management planning and some technical assistance. So, like I said, the Forest Resiliency Division, there's a lot of us, and I always like to use the silos, and we're all kind of in silos. And on to the right there's community resilience folks, people that work with post-fire restoration. So if you had your forest land burned up, we would come in and the state would help you stop erosion and get trees growing and get you back on trajectory. There's a small forest landowner office. If you're interested in doing a timber sale, we got a slew of folks that'll help you with forest practice application and helping you get loggers and contractors to help you go. And then at the bottom, of course, is service forestry work is what I focus on. So this is a picture of the lovely staff, which has been whittled down recently. This is Amanda Taylor. She left a few years ago. And just recently, this gentleman here, Don Meeks, retired and moved his tent to Phoenix. And Lisa Kiner, she is moved to forest practices. And she works in the Curtis unit, which is part of mainly a little bit of Lewis County and Pacific County. So she'll be in the area, but in a different program. And then there's myself, and then Samantha Lathan and McKenna Milosevic are a team right now that are covering most of the region. I'm sure everybody knows the state budget's a little bit tough right now. We're waiting for the budget to come out usually around August of our new fiscal year to see what the budget is before we have the funds to replace two of our service foresters. So we're kind of treading water to see if there's a budget to replace them. If not, we're going to have to make do with this two team and then me kind of covering the coast. So fingers crossed we get our budget. The fully funded budget is in the governor's budget as well as the House and the Senate. So we got our fingers crossed that it'll go through and we'll be fully funded to help landowners as well as to provide financial assistance to do restoration projects, which we'll get into. Hockey fans, I kind of am a hockey fan, but I like to have this picture because service foresters, we wear so many hats. We have to know all the bugs and crud, the diseases of all the trees. We got to know forest practices rules. We got to help landowners know where the nurseries are and the availability for trees. We got to kind of know a little bit about the mills and the logging and the silviculture. Keeping up on the innovation of science. Assisted migration is a new one that's coming on. People are really interested in bringing in trees that are growing at a little warmer climates to kind of bring them on in up. We know contractors. We got to know a bunch of stuff. And the one thing I like to tell folks is that if we don't know it, we know someone that's going to be able to help you. And we want to kind of get you in that pathway instead of you call someone and they're like, okay, call this person. And then you call that person, then they tell you to call this person. So we try to limit that so you get your help as quickly as possible. So just kind of like I said, on the slide on the left is we work with fire crews and communities. This is a community in Riderwood, which is in Cowlitz County. They're a Firewise USA site. And we go and pick up brush that the community cuts and puts in their alley. We come by and pick it up, and then they haul it off. The photo on the right is we have heavy equipment that helps small forested landowners open up ingress, egress to their property to do management or for fire hazard issues. We do tons of educational outreach. In a couple weeks, there's a WSU program being put on in Vancouver, WSU Vancouver, called Winter School. And there's 4 or 5 service foresters, including myself. We're going to be giving, now I have to get this right after the last presentation, a class or a presentation. I'm going to talk about the forestry tools, which you kind of see on this table, and how to use them, as well as talking about just common plants in the area. Another person's going to talk about noxious weeds. And we have another person that's going to talk about carbon sequestration. And so there's going to be a lot of classes that people can come in and learn with a few hands-on stuff. So a little bit of everything. So that's coming up. We do a lot of that. This is a high school event in Woodland, Washington. We go up to every year. We try to engage young kids to be interested in the natural resources. And so there's a lot of opportunity DNR to get engaged. We do field tours for kids, and we do a lot of youth outreach. And we have a youth outreach program coordinator that we work with, and she helps us get kids interested in the field of natural resources. Like I said, we got to know about all the nurseries, what's going on, and so we can provide that information to landowners. And we also do, we help landowners that are concerned about forest fires, as well as defensible space around their home. So we're trained to go take notes about your house, give you advice on maybe you should focus on this, upgrade your screens, clean your gutters, kind of a myriad of issues that we help with. And we kick you out a report, and you can kind of move forward from them of how to kind of beef up your home to help against forest fires. This is kind of just a little bit, I won't go into it too much. Death by PowerPoint is my worst thing ever. So just a little quick, you guys can read all that. The big one I like to look at is that we did 140 on the ground projects in our last biennium. And we reached out to over 300 new landowners. So that's us engaging with landowners to help them understand their forest better, as well as doing some projects with them. This is kind of just the acres that we helped, and Mike is in this category here. We helped him with the forest management plan. He crafted the whole thing, and I kind of added a few edits. So he did the bulk of it, and I kind of helped them along in certain areas. And then just these other areas of actual vegetation on the ground work, that the idea is to get these forests more resilient for climate and fire and bugs and diseases. We're trying to get these, take the smaller, sicker trees out, get the bigger ones growing, and just try to make things more resilient out there. And this is a landowner, this picture. He had an area that wasn't very vegetated in very well. He kind of cleared it out, and he planted trees in there. And this is a little western hemlock that he planted and demarcated it with some cherry that he cut out. And this is kind of just the funds. And so I kind of touched on it a little bit. We did not get fully funded the last fiscal year, but we're hoping we're going to get fully funded this coming fiscal year, which is $60 million. And so $60 million goes to fire crews, fire suppression, as well as community resilience, all those silos. And then service forestry gets a little bit of that to help landowners with projects. I love this stat. Over 50% of the projects we do are motivated landowners. Sounds like a lot of you on the line are motivated. And so you can do the work yourself and you get compensated for it. Or you could say, that's too much, I'm going to get a contractor. So we go both ways on that. And so now the part of the presentation is this all sounds good. I want a service forester to come out. I want some help. So how am I eligible for it? And so eligibility for a site visit, all you need to own is some forest land. You can't own more than 5,000 acres, which kind of gets you into those large industrial landowners like the warehousers. But if you're a nonprofit or a city municipality, then we still help. Currently, I'm assisting the city of South Bend. They own their watershed, which supplies fresh water to the city of South Bend. And so we're working with them on improving their watershed for water quality as well as forest resiliency. The only thing we really try to steer away from, because that's all we'd be doing, is people want to buy some forest land and they want us to come out and they want us to tell us how much is it worth, what's going on. And so we kind of try to stay away from that. But as soon as you own it, then we can come out and help you. And it is no charge to the landowner. This is a service provided by the state. And we'll come out and take a peek and see what's going on. And so the next thing I go to, and I can put it in the chat. See if I can find a chat here. There it is. Paste, enter. So I just put in the chat. This I'm talking about right now is available. Let's see if I can get that out of there. This is available. It's an online portal. And if you're a small forested landowner, you should have this bookmarked. And you go to this for any questions you have. There's so many resources out there, so many connections. And you can start clicking and get lost in your clicking. What I'm going to focus on here is find your forester, which would be me. Let's move it forward. Why you're not moving forward? And you hit that find your forester and the map of the state comes up. And you have two options here. You can enter your address, your actual physical address, and you hit zoom to it and it's going to go right to it. Or you can just kind of zoom in and then click where your property is. So for this presentation, what I did is I punched in Grays Harbor Community College and it dropped a pin on the address that you see there. And on the right, all this information pops up. And there's my name as your forester. If you're interested in having a stewardship fish and wildlife biologist come out and look at your property for improvements in wildlife, you give Mr. Ken a call. Forest Regulations Assistance Forester, if you're interested in doing a timber sale, you give that gentleman a call. Then there's more. There's just all these resources on the right that you can just start clicking and calling. And if you're not getting through to us, you can call my supervisor here and the supervisor of the program to kind of help things move along. So, but typically we will get to you. And so after you hit that, you're calling or emailing somebody, and we have a policy within the agency is that we try to get back to you in 2 business days. We do service forestry, therefore we provide a service to the public, and we want to make sure we're providing that service. And what we'll do is we'll have a quick discussion, and maybe all you want to know where the trees are, and we just give you the phone number to Webster Nursery or a nursery, and you go get the trees, and then we're done. Or you say, I want a site visit, and so typically we try to get a site visit within 4 weeks, and then we come out and take a peek. And again, the site visits and the technical assistance are no charge to the landowner. So next thing we do is if you're up for a site visit, what we do is we do a little desk work. We do GIS work. We're looking at your property from 5,000 feet. We're providing maps. We're looking at the soil data, and we're looking at any other relative information, streams, wildlife, culture resources, everything that may impact the work we do. So we're snooping on your property from about 5,000 feet. But most of it's public knowledge. There's a few things the DNR provides. Culture resources is not public knowledge that we just kind of make sure we're covering our bases. And so the next thing is the biggest question that we ask, service forester asks a landowner is, what are your goals and objectives? They vary. Each landowner varies immensely. And I think if all of you on here, your goals and objectives are different from how you grow your garden or how you manage and curate your garden. No different than landowners. Like I mentioned before, we are open to any objective or goal you have. And this picture is funny that I have a worker with a landowner out of Menlo. He kind of put his arm on my shoulder and he goes, Dan, my goal is, see those Doug fir growing there? I want them to go as fast as they can, as quick as they can, and I want them on a log truck, and I want to maximize my profit. And I'm like, okay, let's work that way. Other people, they hate Doug fir. There's some folks on the coast that they purchase land and it's all Doug fir, and they know it's not native historically into that concentration, and they want to cut out Doug fir. They want spruce growing, they want hemlock growing, and they want cedar growing for wildlife. And it's like, cool, let's work on that. Let's get you there. Other people have beautiful stands already intact. And this landowner was a little worried about fire, so we did some fire suppression, but beautiful stand. This is out of Castle Rock, Cowlitz County. Just gorgeous stand of older age Douglas fir. And this is what I mentioned earlier. This is on the hills looking be south west towards Willapa Bay. And this is the Willapa River coming in. City of South Bend's right here. And this is this landscape I'm working with the City of South Bend on. And their goals and objectives is to improve water quality for the residents and citizens of South Bend. And to grow the timber out so they can do a harvest to make some money to help support the property, as well as to have supplemental income for South Bend. So now, after this visit's over, we either walk away and we just go, oh my gosh, this was the best site visit I've ever been on. You guys are doing amazing work. The trajectory of your stand is going right where it needs to go. Then we just kind of kudos. Or we kick you over to one of those other silos and we help you get you going on your other path. Or we get you engaged with these folks to help with your goals and objectives. Or down to the bottom, you keep going with the service forestry program, and then we keep moving together. The service foresters, we're kind of, like I say, we break the ice. We get in. We really are the first face of the agency to come into landowners, and then we either stay with you or we delegate you to someone else in the agency that can get you where you want to go. But let's say that you are wanting to do a little reforestation or a restoration project on your property. And so again, eligibility of that is you can have over 5,000 acres, but there's no minimum acreage requirement. We've done projects as low as 1/4 of an acre, which would be, they have this beautiful little stand in their backyard. It's just covered in ivy, covered in blackberries. We help you get rid of the ivy and blackberries and then reforest. So that's a project that we can help with. One great thing about our program is you're not required to have a forest management plan. Other agencies require a forest management plan, but not the state. And The service program is all it's on the non-commercial side of things. You typically trees 8 inches or less, non-commercial. If you want to do a commercial and make revenue, then we're going to kick you to my buddy. It's going to come in and help you. But we're all on the non-commercial side of things. So like I talked about, these are the activities we help with. Brush control, which is weed control. We help with pruning, pre-commercial thinning. And here you see a picture of a burn pile that folks burned, and we come in and help reforest. And so they put in some Doug fir and they have some cedar as well. And we assist with forest management plans, either providing a little bit of information to help along. If the landowner wants to write it, we kind of help guide them and steer them, provide recommendations, or you can enter into the cost share program and contract that out and have a professional forester craft your plan for you. And so I like this slide right here because a lot of folks get excited, especially the do-it-yourselfers, when they find out that they potentially could receive up to about $2,500 to do some restoration on their project, on their property. And so I like to do this little hypothetical example of how much funds will be provided and how much funds you'll get in return. This is yellow archangel. I would never advocate for planting it. It is a noxious weed, but it's my hypothetical. Just say the DNR has a program that will help you plant this plant for $100 an acre, and you have 1 acre that you want to reforest. So the total size of the project is 1 acre. Therefore, $100 is the most the DNR is going to provide for this project. So you're like, do I do it myself or do I get a contractor? And so you decide I'm going to get a contractor, and they invoice you $1,000. The DNR is only going to pay $100 of that. You're on the hook for the $900. But you say, I want to do it myself, and you figure out, you get a busload of kids out, you get your neighbors, your buddies, your partners, and you all come in and you plant this acre, and you do it for $1 because you bought some coffee for your friends. You're not going to get the $100 from the DNR. You're going to get 50 cents because it's a 50-50 cost share project up to that maximum reimbursement level. So let's do a true 50-50 cost share project. You either do it yourself for $200 and you track all your time, or you get a contractor that did it for $200. Therefore, we're going to split. That's an equal 50-50 project. So you're going to get $100 for doing it yourself or for reimbursing the contractor. Because I like to bring that in because a lot of times we did a project and landowners think they get about $3,500 in return, but they only put in about $1,000. And so they only get reimbursed $500. And they're like, what? The paperwork says I'm going to get $3,500, but it doesn't quite work that way. And so we have all these rates depending how brushy your site is. This picture on the left was all this was blackberries in this Doug fir, and a contract crew came out and cut it all down to release the Doug fir and the cedar and hemlock. And this would have been a brush level of $450 per acre. So that will help offset the costs. Thinning is kind of the same way. We got 3 levels. Anything on the coast on Long Beach Peninsula where there's 2,000 stems per acre, you're going to get a level 4. But if you're only cutting a few trees per acre, it's just not as much. Pruning is the same way. We got a couple levels of this, and this gentleman here pruned up his trees, and he got reimbursed $190 per acre. Planting is the same way. If you're going to interplant a few trees per acre, we'll reimburse up to $150. And if you're doing a full-blown, I have a 2-acre pasture in my backyard that I'm tired of mowing it. I want to put it back into trees, and we call that afforestation. And you'll get the maximum rate because it's expensive to take a pasture and reforest it to trees. And then the slash, of all the slash that grows on the west side, is the most difficult thing for landowners to address, as well as contractors. And so we have 4 levels of that, and typically we reimburse $530 an acre up to take care of the slash. And you can see here, this is a fire crew project we did at Ocean Park, and you can see all the slash that was accumulated from this little fire project. And the homeowners association came in and rented a chipper and then put all the chips on the walking trail. Chipping is one way to get rid of it. This is the most common way. And this gentleman here, he is the most motivated individual that I've ever met. And he actually walks around in the woods barefoot. And he is a master chainsawer. And he took this vine maple, kind of took over, and he slashed it all out. And you can see how he lopped and scattered it. And then these blue tubes are cedar, and he planted hemlock and Doug fir all through here after he cut that all out. And so his idea was trying to get conifers to grow to make his stand more resilient. And amazing. He is so motivated. And then we talked a little bit about burning. We put a tree right in the middle of the burn pile. And one thing I love to do, and this is our fire crew right here. And what happened was, this was a place in Cinnabar. This is in Lewis County. They had a heavy windstorm that came through, and a lot of trees just kind of fell over, and they were hazard trees. So our fire crew came in and got all the trees on the ground. And what they did is the crew kind of made wildlife piles out of them with the logs, and then cut it up for firewood. And so the landowners took some of it off for firewood and left some of that wood on the ground for critters. And these are stuff that we all do. We're all biologically focused, as well as forest resiliency focused, as well as fuels reduction focused. So we kind of do everything. And this is a landowner out of Raymond. He had an access road, and he was really concerned about fire hazards. And so what we do is, there's a thing called a shaded fuel break, and we reduce fuels 50 feet off the road. And so you can see a ribbon here. That's 50 feet. So he came in and removed all the underbrush and the ladder fuels and pruned it, and he did all the work himself. And he got compensated over $3,000 for this. And forest stewardship planning, we assist with this. Our only limitation is you got to have 20 acres to have funding to do a forest management plan. And these are kind of the fee structure that we help with. As I mentioned, Mike, he went through WSU coach planning, and he crafted his plan himself. And then I gave him some advice, and that is at no charge to Mike. It's just if you want to have it contracted to do work on. And if anybody on the line wanted to go ahead and write your own management plan for your timber stand, you can definitely go ahead and tackle it. And then I would help you along if you wanted at no charge. And so we're kind of at the point of the site visit's over. You know kind of what your reimbursement rates are. You know how much money you might get to do your project. Am I going to do it myself? Am I going to get a contractor? Well, that's all fine and good. But what you're going to guarantee for us is you're going to get a post-site report. And it's going to be a report with pictures. It's going to be a summary of our discussion as we walked around the woods, what we talked about, what you need to focus on, our recommendations, and it's all in this report moving forward, so you can use it as a working template to get to where you want on your goals and objectives. But if later down the road you decide you do want a project, this is our application. That's it. It's one page. You sign up, you mail it back to me or scan it, and then we enter it in, and I create a polygon in GIS, and we get going, and we go from there. And so now we work together of what you want, and we create a prescription. You say you have a 5-acre stand that has 800 trees per acre on it. You want to thin it down to a 12 by 12. We go through a prescription and create these maps. This is a map. This is in Winlock. And this was the prescription for it. So we work together. And this is going to be a working document for you if you want to do it yourself, or when the contractors come up on your property, you hand them this and they review it and then they make a bid on it. So it's kind of a dual purpose for these prescriptions. And what we do, if you want to have a contractor do it, we give you a list of 10 contractors, and it's up to you to give them a call. They come out and they give you a bid, and we don't require bids anymore. The only thing, you'll know how much money you get. And if it's a heavy thinning and it's 5 acres, you know what the max reimbursement rate's going to be from the DNR. So it behooves the landowners to get as many bids as possible to bring their costs down. And if that all goes through, you'll get an approval letter from the state of Washington. And this is kind of the basics of it. And you are free to get going. And the only thing we ask is that the date on the approval letter is, if you're accruing charges as do-it-yourselfer, you want to make sure these are posted afterwards. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a second. So we kind of been talking a lot about this contractor or do-it-yourselfer. It all depends on the size of the project and your motivation level. And a lot of times it's financial. But like I said, 55% of the landowners we work with, they just roll up their sleeves and do the work themselves, and they track their time. So we reimburse up to $30 an hour. If you go out for an hour and do some pruning with a chainsaw, you get $40 for that hour, and you track that because that's building that match towards that reimbursement that you're getting. A lot of people have the equipment. This is like an ATV or a little mini trackhoe, and they track that hours. You can rent equipment to do the work and you get reimbursed. We just got to make sure you have the receipts and the supplies. If you buy trees or tree tubes or anything to help, we got to make sure you save those receipts, and they need to be, the date on the receipt needs to be after the date of the approval letter. That's really important. Things we don't reimburse for self-cost is equipment maintenance, sawgas, and just kind of the old maintenance. We get a lot of receipts from landowners that say, I bought 2 chains, I have my saw serviced, and I bought a bunch of gas. Well, we don't reimburse for that. It's kind of built into that $10 an hour for the equipment rate. So the next step is, how do you want the payment coming from the DNR? So it depends. A lot of people, it's kind of 50-50 that you create a statewide vendor number, and then the state will wire money either to you, your checking account or savings account, or we wire it to the contractor's checking account or saving account. Depends on what you want. I'm working with a landowner right now in Cathlamet. He's doing a 1-acre project. He has a contractor coming next week, and he knows how much he's going to get from the DNR. He's going to pay the contractor, and then he's going to take the DNR reimbursement through to his own checking account. A lot of landowners don't want to deal with the money at all, and they just say, give it to the contractor. So it all depends on your desires for the reimbursement. And so we really work with you when the project's going. We really work with you and your contractor. We meet with them on day one to make sure they're dialed in on what they're supposed to be doing. And we work with you and make sure they're doing what you like. And we do that process all the way to the end. And when they're done, we come out and certify it. Either you did it or the contractor. We walk around. We take, before the project starts, we take baseline photos, kind of in a 360. And we kind of go to those spots and take post photos to see if the work was completed as laid out. This gives me a little time to talk about the challenges there's always challenges. And noxious weed is a huge challenge. And this photo is from, I think, Ireland, but it's gorse. And everybody knows gorse in Pacific County. Noxious weeds are so hard to get rid of. And there's always hesitance of using herbicide versus mechanical. We work with both we work with your desires of doing chemical or mechanical. Canary grass is another huge one. Ivy, knotweed, thistle. It's hard to battle noxious weeds. And then the climate change. Heat. We had the heat dome a few years ago, and we're still kind of recovering from that, and drought. I talked about deer at my house, and small mammal damage is huge. Contractors. This is a hard one too. A lot of contractors aren't interested in doing small projects. It doesn't pencil out for them to take off and drive an hour and a half, 2 hours to do a little 1 acre project. So it gets frustrating on that end. And there's still a little bit of trust that we're trying to earn back from landowners, from the DNR, the government. Just the hesitance of entering a contract, the hesitance of working with the state. It's just, we still work with people through that. Christmas tree farms. This is a huge one in the region. A while back, someone explained there's quite a good market in Christmas trees. So a lot of people established Christmas tree farms, and then the market kind of tanked, and they have all these large acres in Christmas trees. This is an 8x8 Grand Fir Christmas tree farm in Lewis County. And the landowner purchased this and was trying to figure out what to do with this. And so it's really hard to work with Christmas tree farms because there's a lot of biomass to get rid of. They're expensive. And if we try to thin this, it's just going to noodle over and blow over. And so there's a lot of strategy to go into Christmas tree farms. I talked a little bit about herbicides. In the gorge, there's critical area ordinances, scenic gorge. And a big one too is landowners, they get frustrated and they just become too overwhelmed by the size of the project, the complexity, and the time. And so typically what we do is we'll dial it back a little bit. They'll nibble on it. They'll get some confidence going. Then we kind of expand it. And the last two are quite common as well. The buying of a property and not understanding what they're getting into and all the complexities of it, and even in the inheritance of the property. Just a little, it can be overwhelming, but we try to ease your mind and get you through it. It takes some time. Successes. Biochar is really starting to take off. It's really cool. I don't know if anybody's seen or worked around biochar. When you get the heat just right, it is impressive. And so I'm looking to buy one of these as the agency and then have it on site and then lend it out to folks to get rid of fuels through biochar. Assisted migration is a huge one too. Folks are understanding things are heating up and they're trying to get trees that were sown in nurseries that are a little more tolerant to hotter conditions, drier conditions, and they're bringing them in. Goats. We have a guy that uses goats, clear blackberries. He pens them off, gets them in there, nibbles down the blackberries, and we reimburse him for his time. We don't pay each goat. We don't quite know how to do that, but we pay his time for brush control. So they control the brush and they eliminate the slash and then they fertilize. So it's quite well. Drones is always going to continue to be a really innovative science coming in to help. And then excitements of the landowners. Every landowner loves when we come out. They are so proud of their property. They're so proud of the work they do, and they want to take us to every corner of the property. And we love it. We do it. We say, take us where you want to go. And they have so many stories. and they're just proud, and it feels good to help them along. And the latest example is of kind of all the hats we wear. There was a landowner up in Lewis County. They had a huge amount of Scotch broom. They got it removed, and the planting season was running down. We had noticed that there were some extra trees in the Lewis River nursery. We reached out to the nursery to confirm they had the trees. We called back that landowner that day and told them there was 1,000 trees up in the woodland that they could go get. They went and got the trees, and then they planted them that weekend in a do-it-yourself project. So they were able to not wait till next season to plant, and just us keeping our ears to the ground and keeping our connections and our partners, we're able to help landowners quickly. And that's a great success story of getting trees in the ground rather than waiting a full year. That was the last one I had. Ooh, I finished right on time. So questions. I know to me, this is I think the biggest question. Oh, there's Mike. Is we really help the forested landowners. I know in the towns we can help. We have folks that do urban forestry that we can get you in contact with. If you have like a sick tree, we can come and look at your sick tree. But most of our work is kind of in the uplands, in the forested land sites. But we work with community resilient folks as well, and we do HIZs as well. So it's going to be a little iffy here for a while because we're only running on 3 people, and so I don't want to overcommit too much right now. But we can do the best we can until we know what our budget is come the next fiscal year.
This is great stuff. Mike, you have your hand up first.
Yeah, hey Dan, it's good seeing you again. Dan's helped out Pacific County Fire District 1 a lot and has worked with my wife for the fire mitigation there. And so I was telling her about this. She says hi, and I got a couple of questions for you, Dan. One of them is with the mild winter we have, do you have any forecasts for the forests, or is it a good report, a bad report because of the mild winter?
Well, I think mild winters always kind of equate to less snow in the snowpack, and I heard the snowpack's low. Mild winters to me reflect it's going to be drier. What I'm seeing right now is a little bit of a trend with this. The mild winters we're having is the big leaf maple and some cedars are really starting to struggle a little bit. What I'm seeing, especially the cedars. But a mild winter, it makes me nervous for the soil conditions are going to dry up. There's not that moisture in there, and the trees are going to have more of a struggle with moisture. Except obviously for you on the coast, your water table is about a foot below you. But for other people inland, it's a concern, and the snowpack is a huge concern, which I'm hearing. And then I have a meeting next week to discuss your question right now in more detail. We have folks come in from NOAA, and they talk to the group about a forecast going on for the winter, but in the coming fire season. But it has been mild. January was quite mild, if I remember, but it's always a concern.
Dan, the second question I have, I'm preparing a hugelkultur presentation, and that in my research, there's other states that are looking at hugelkultur for wildland fire mitigation, burying slash piles with dirt, digging big ditches, pushing all the woods in there and burying that. Any thoughts on Washington State?
Boy, you're gonna have to drop that name in the chat. I have not heard of that. What'd you call it?
It's hugelkultur, and I'll tell you what, how about if I call you and we can talk about it a little bit more, and I can share some of my resources with you.
Yeah, I have not heard that. It sounds really interesting.
Put the chat here. Yeah, it's in the Aaron's already got it in the chat there. You betcha. It's a practice, Dan, that actually is it's we've been talking about it a lot here at the coast, right? For soil amendment, and it is a great practice. And I think as Mike's hinting at, it could be a very useful technique for taking care of utility of this slash, especially in coastal environments. Randy, you have your hand up. Or Mike, did you have anything else? Yeah. Okay, Randy, you have your hand up.
Yes, I have a couple of questions. When there's a timbering operation that's going to be taking effect in a neighborhood, is it possible the DNR could help notify the neighbors who also have land parcels that have timber that they may want harvested, to be notified that there's an application for timbering in this one location, and maybe you can piggyback on that. For example, my neighbor, a timber company just bought it. They got 60 acres going to timber, and I had some timber that was not harvested the last time on mine. So I've asked them to call me when they're going to log, so that when they're doing the logging operation, they can also get some of the acreage on my property. But I've also got some neighbors who have a few acres of alder and other things that, for a standalone timber project, might not be overly cost effective. But to piggyback on one operation, if they know about it, then you'll have the logging company benefits because they already had the equipment and manpower in there, and they can just kind of move from site to site in that particular spot. The problem is notification to the people around the logging application that, hey, an operation is going to be taking effect.
Yeah, unfortunately, the DNR does not send out notifications to neighboring landowners with a approved forest practices application.
Could that be changed?
I've been asking this question in my past life. I always managed a bunch of property with Columbia Land Trust, and I'd be out there, and then all of a sudden there's a logging operation going on next door, and I'm like, oh, I was never notified. It would have been nice. But I can ask that again. It just doesn't have like a SEPA, or even in the city, you get a notice of what's going on. Someone's putting in a fence, you get a notice, but the DNR does not do that. But it's something I can ask. And piggybacking 100%, if that would be all on the contractor, if the contractor wanted to do that and then come on over to you. But I get your point. It'd be nice if you could be notified. But
it makes more money for the people, for the landowners. It makes them more inclined to manage the property for timber. A second question I have, now I have a county road that dead ends on my property, next to my property, and there's a bridge that's a single lane. It's got a high guardrail, and because of some of the equipment now is larger than it used to be for logging, the guardrails are too narrow to allow the equipment to come through to the northern part of the road. So logging operations can't use that kind of equipment. And I've asked the Department of Roads to change the bridge can handle the weight. It's just the guardrails need to be modified so they can at least be removable, so the excavator can get through. But I think maybe some DNR influence to the Department of Roads say, why don't you help the loggers where they have a bridge that's impeding the logging operations? And I've tried for years. And last time I had logging done, about 7 acres, they had, and environmentally it's not sound either, they had to go up to the Wainuchi-Wishkah and come back down through Weyerhaeuser and cut through Weyerhaeuser's young grove of trees to log my property. That's inefficient.
Yeah.
And it's not environmentally sound to have to be able to do that, all because of the guardrails on that bridge.
Yeah, and unfortunately, you're probably not going to get a DNR representative to push back on the county roads, or even WashDOT, or even city.
How about just making a suggestion to the Department of Roads? Help us, help you.
Sure.
Help the community.
If you can look on that portal I sent you, and there either look at the Forest Regulation Assistance Forester or the Forest Practices Forester, in that portal link, and shoot them an email or give them a call and see what they say.
Okay. I have one final question: does DNR advocate silvopasture to reduce fire risk? In other words, the the grazing of cattle in forest to remove the undergrowth? I do that on my property.
We have not suggested that, but it sounds like are they eating blackberries or just grass under brush?
It's just a bunch of brambles, and the thing is, when they walk through, they also break up the blackberries. And I think that if you're paying people to clear the roads next to the brush next to the roads, my cattle do it for me for free.
Yeah,
and I eat them.
Yeah, it's funny. We had a cattle question come up the other day, and I can bring that up. We're not sure of that, but we use goats, obviously. But the goats that we've used, there was more to the project. They would clear it and then reforest it.
Right.
But I get your sense. It's a shaded fuel break along the road. Why can't I put up an electric fence and have cows go through there and eat all the brush? So
yeah,
it's a good question. It's come up. This is the second one that's came up in a couple of weeks. I'm going to start seeing what we can do with cattle.
Okay.
Dan, I put in the chat, actually an article in Nature magazine talking about this actual assessing the value of silvic pasture as a means for fire load, right?
Mm-hmm.
So so there's a lot of research going on for this. By the way, I also put in the chat, Dan, your title, your contact information, because clearly it sounds like from what we're hearing here today is that give you a call. Right, and let that start the dialogue, right, in terms of where the opportunities might be. Hey, Lori has a question in the chat too. What tree species you're bringing in for the assisted migration program?
Assisted migration is kind of two parts. It's either you're bringing in sequoias or redwoods or incense cedars. The other part is it's just Douglas fir or hemlock or cedar that are grown in nurseries in a little warmer climate. And so they're kind of bringing them up from the Willamette Valley. A lot of people are actually bringing in Willamette Valley pine and planting them in kind of lower, wetter areas, and they're doing really well. And so it's not any different species. It's just kind of where they're growing, and what climate they're growing. Southern. There's a few people, I will say, they're starting to bring in redwoods. They're planting redwoods and incense cedars as well as sequoias. And those are the three kind of outside of the native range of Washington state that they're kind of bringing up from California. But most of the assisted migration is just the same species that we have here native, but grown at different seed zones, different elevations within Washington or Oregon.
See, really at Ponderosa pine being brought up here?
Not yet. Ponderosa pine is native to the west side. It's up in Thurston and Pierce County, and it's on the air base. It takes a little different soils for it, so it's got to have the right soils to grow. I see an occasional Ponderosa pine here and there in town, but no one's been planting large scale Ponderosa pine.
Silver. What species of pine in particular, though? Is that silver? Or
white Willamette Valley pine.
Yeah, but it's coming up as Ponderosa pine.
It's probably Pinus ponderosa, and then there's probably a
subspecies,
yes.
hybridization. Yeah.
But it can really grow in wet areas. I've actually seen it growing in canary grass floodplains. And I know a Ponderosa pine, east side, you think of a Ponderosa is not going to live in water.
Wow. Other questions, other comments for Dan? This has been very helpful, Dan, seriously, and very compelling in terms of the service that you aim to provide to landowners. And and as you said, it doesn't have to be a large acreage, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just that, your ability to consult and provide console is and truly we do see this a lot in terms of people that are new to the area and they may have acquired some substantial acreage and they're clueless, right, as to what to do about their lands. So having you as a resource is a huge asset.
And we are absolutely not afraid to say, you know what, I have no idea. Let me do some research. I know someone, and we've had people from Olympia come down that are pathologists, and they'll come down and look. Sometimes we just don't know what's going on with this tree, or we'll send pictures. So we engage everybody. Our advice and recommendations are the livelihood of people. And we want to make sure we get it right. We don't want to give you bad advice, because bad advice could financially send you the wrong way, or you lose your favorite tree, or you're doing the wrong thing. So we want to make sure we're giving you the correct advice. And that's why we have to keep up on all the science, all the new technologies. The emerald ash borer is coming. I think you've all heard that. It's going to be here. So if you have ash trees, keep your eyes out for those little D divots that come into the trees. And so we're just constantly having to keep up. But like I said, we're not afraid to say, I have no idea. I've learned 2 things here today.
Questions, comments for Dan? Terry, I'm curious with respect to your acreage. You have substantial forest acreage. Have you ever thought about having it, having a visit?
Actually, no, because one of our really good friends is a retired fish and wildlife officer. So he often helps us kind of manage our forest area.
Cool.
Granted, he's more of a biologist, but he also continues to spend a lot of time in the forest. So we kind of rely on him. But our property does butt up to DNR property.
And the lesson I think you're sharing though is that you've brought in expert counsel, right? You know, you've not tried to do this yourself. You have other sets of eyes looking at your land, right, and giving you counsel in terms of how best to manage it.
Right. And we do have the backside of our forest backs up with DNR land, which we understand. We got a flyer in the mail that said they are looking at a land swap with Fish and Wildlife to take over this DNR piece of property.
Are you in Pacific or Grace Harbor?
Grace Harbor, Stearns Bluff.
Okay.
It's just it would be east of Johns River.
Oh yeah, okay. I've worked with some landowners off of that road actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I bet you are. It's a lot of forestry going on.
There's a little 18-acre pre-commercial thin that we did there, and there was a property that blew over in the windstorm, and it all blew over, and they salvaged it, and it was just all the trees growing back up.
Well, that happened to us in the storms of 2008 and 2009. We had a almost like a whirlwind come into the center of the forest, and we actually had a logging company come in and pull out the downed trees, and so it's all regenerated since then.
That was a funny visit because the landowners, they reforested it on a 12 by 12 of Doug fir, and which Doug fir on the coast has a little bit of issues with Swiss needlecast, so you got to weigh the odds of planting too much Doug fir. And it was 2,000 stems per acre. And the landowners were like, we planted 12 by 12 Doug fir out there. And I'm like, it's there. But the hemlock and the spruce naturally just came up. And so, like we're talking about goals and objectives, they wanted all the Doug fir to save for a future harvest for their kids. And so we left all the Doug fir and then nibbled out the spruce and the hemlock.
That is true. The hemlock and the spruce are pretty aggressive.
They are.
Yeah.
Other comments, questions for Dan? This has been hugely interesting and compelling, Dan. And who knows? Now you'll have hugelkultur to add as an additional tool in your arsenal here, right?
I'm gonna go crazy on it.
And again, a shout out to Mike, because he actually did work with you, right, on a forest management program on his acreage out there. And I know that it was a great value to him, and he definitely has used it as a teaching exercise for the rest of us here.
Cool. Yeah, he did a great job. His place is fun to go tour. You should do a tour there if you haven't already.
He still has quite the menagerie, that's for sure.
Yes, he does.
Other questions, other comments for Dan? Otherwise, we'll end it there. and we'll move on, and thank everybody for participating here today. Dan, thank you very much for being here. Thank you, Erin, for your sharing. We look forward to a full continuing education program in April. Okay. Signing off, everyone. Remember our board meeting for the foundation at 1 p.m. in 1 hour's time using the same Zoom URL. Okay. Bye all.
Bye.